Hello and welcome to Indian Standard Time. I'm Siddharth Varadarajan, and joining me today for this episode is a very special guest, former President Hamid Karzai of Afghanistan. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, sir.
It's a real pleasure to have you.
Pleasure is mine.
Let's start by getting your assessment of the ground level security situation in Afghanistan. We've seen recently news of deterioration in Helmand province, which led the Afghan government to request American soldiers to be inducted there, and you have gone on the record saying that this is not a positive development. Why do you feel that the reinduction of American troops in Helmand is a negative thing?
Well, the deterioration in security situation in Afghanistan is not because of our ability fighting. In other words, it's not because of our inabilities as far as Afghans are concerned. The Afghan army, the Afghan police, the Afghan security forces are sacrificing their lives every day to protect Afghanistan. Our problems are not inside Afghanistan. Our problems are in the sanctuaries beyond Afghanistan, in the training grounds beyond Afghanistan. So what that means is fighting inside Afghanistan, more operations militarily inside Afghanistan will not pay off. We've been doing this for 14 years without a result. What I meant was that we should focus on the elements causing insecurity in Afghanistan outside of Afghanistan rather than doing things inside without the result.
You're making an important point, actually. What you're saying is that the military challenge that the Taliban pose for the Afghan government has to be fought not necessarily by the greater application of military force within the country, either by the US or by the Afghan army, but actually by tackling the root cause, which is the safe havens that these terrorist groups have across the border.
Exactly, the root cause, and the root cause is outside of Afghanistan. So handling that will bring peace to Afghanistan. More operations into Afghanistan would not bring peace. Had that been the solution, we would have had it 14 years ago. We became peaceful. With the arrival of the international forces in Afghanistan, we became peaceful.
Right.
But soon we saw that sanctuaries were created, and those sanctuaries began to affect Afghanistan's security and well-being. Therefore, it's back to where it was. The causes, the root causes, and the root causes are outside of Afghanistan.
And the greater application of force, particularly by, say, the US inside Afghanistan, might actually be counterproductive in terms of alienating the people of Afghanistan?
Definitely, as it has been. Therefore, no, we want US assistance in training and providing support to Afghanistan. Right. We want an effective campaign against terrorism, but an effective campaign against terrorism is not inside of Afghanistan because that's not where it emanates. It emanates from elsewhere.
Right. But from time to time we hear British, American military officials say that, well, we've put all this money in, trained the Afghan National Security Forces, but they still need our assistance, they're still not up to the job. That's not your assessment?
No, we are a brave nation. The whole world knows that. We are a brave nation. We can defend our country. But the nature of things, the nature of this fight is not one that will require the strength and bravery of soldiers in the battlefield. It is not a battlefield situation. It's a creeping, arrival of extremists and terrorists trained outside where they attack us in our homes, in our children, like the consulate attack today in Jalalabad, the Indian consulate. How do you prevent that unless it happens?
Right.
And then you have to go and sacrifice your life to prevent it. So sacrifice has been there, a great deal, heroically, but that sacrifice will only end an attack when it starts, not where it originates, and that's what we should do.
I'll return to this issue of where terror originates a little bit later, but let me just stick with the deterioration in the security situation. Clearly the Taliban are on an offensive. They feel that they have a military edge within the country. How do we reconcile that with the emphasis that your government earlier and the current government has on the possibility of dialogue and a negotiated settlement. To an observer like me sitting outside, it seems as if the Taliban aren't interested in any dialogue.
Those Taliban who are Afghans, definitely have Afghan interest in mind.
Okay.
And we must speak to them. That's an Afghan issue, and we must deal with it by speaking with them and by trying to persuade them to come back to the fold of the Afghan people and start a peaceful life. But the issue is not, the Afghan insecurity is not only because of that. The Afghan insecurity, as I mentioned earlier, has origins abroad, outside of Afghanistan. And unfortunately, in this case, it is in our neighborly country, Pakistan. So there is also a need between Afghanistan and Pakistan to engage in a dialogue where the use of extremism and terrorism and militancy as a tool is stopped and not, exploited anymore or used anymore against a neighbor. When that happens, Afghanistan will have peace immediately. That is the focus.
If I understand you correctly, you're saying that the Taliban leadership, the so-called Quetta Shura, for example, as long as they act as a proxy for an outside power, Pakistan in this case, there is no possibility of a negotiated settlement? Is that what you're saying?
The Taliban, I know, want peace.
Okay.
They wanted it when I was the president. They spoke to us. Individually, all of them want peace. Issues become difficult when there is need for collective action. That's where outside forces are engaged, outside powers are engaged. And that's where we must settle things. And that means a clear, frank negotiation with Pakistan on a futuristic outlook and on recognizing that Afghanistan is a sovereign country and a country that will have its own relations with the rest of the world, for example, with India. We will never give up that right, but that Afghanistan also will be a good friend with Pakistan and a peaceful neighbor with Pakistan.
So what you're saying essentially is that the Taliban, left to themselves, may very well want peace and a negotiated settlement with the government.
Want peace, yes.
And it is Pakistan that is pushing them to keep the war going?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, during the time you were president, you experimented or tried all kinds of initiatives. With the Pakistani side to get them to work with you, to put an end to their support for these groups. There were times when you felt that you might be successful, only to realize that this was actually not the case. The new president, current president, President Ghani, he also began his tenure with the belief that somehow he could convince Pakistan to change its tactic or its course. But nothing has happened.
Well,
things haven't changed.
every Afghan president, any Afghan president will have to do that. I did it. President Ashraf Ghani is doing that because peace is what we need, what we seek for our country. And we know that peace will not come to Afghanistan unless Pakistan changes its attitude towards Afghanistan. It's this change that we try to bring in Pakistan towards Afghanistan's sovereignty, and towards Afghanistan's right to engage in its own international relations. Whenever we succeed in this, there will be peace in Afghanistan. And that success will not come unless and until Pakistan changes its current approach, its current mindset of imposing a will on Afghanistan through the use of militancy, extremism, or terroristic means.
What can the Afghan side do differently? Because President Ghani went all the way to army headquarters in Rawalpindi to meet with the Pakistani military. Unprecedented for a head of state to do that. Then there was a joint statement or an agreement with the Pakistani side about do's and don'ts. But very quickly that collapsed, and President Ghani also realized that there's been no change in policy. What options do you have?
To keep trying and to keep telling Pakistan, stop the use of extremism as a tool of pressuring Afghanistan. It will not work. Friendship, cooperation, a civilized relationship will work, and Afghanistan will guarantee the same from our side.
The Pakistanis level all kinds of charges against the Kabul government, both when you were president and, of course, now. They say that far from Pakistan operating as a safe haven for the Afghan Taliban, it's your country that is giving a safe haven to the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and other anti-Pakistani extremist groups. How do you respond to that charge?
Well, we were victims in the first place, and we are victims today. What's happening, unfortunately, in Pakistan, the suffering there of the Pakistani people, especially in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, is the direct consequence of Pakistan's own promotion and use of extremism, which many in Pakistan now recognize was wrong. You see it in the Pakistani media, you see it in the Pakistani political leaders.
We thought the attack on the army public school would be a turning point within Pakistan.
Everybody hoped that unfortunate incident, and then the attack on Pasha Khan University as well. So these are the consequences of a bad policy that Pakistan initiated 30 years ago or even before that. We hope it will end. We have the best intentions for Pakistan. The Pakistani people have been tremendously good to us as Afghans, and they are a great nation and a kind people. It's the establishment in Pakistan that we hope will change its outlook towards the world and its security perceptions. Pakistan will not be more secure by using extremism. Pakistan will be a lot more secure by engaging in a civilized relationship with Afghanistan.
The Pakistani side insists that they've given up the earlier conception of using Afghanistan as so-called strategic depth against India and to strengthen themselves. In your perception, has there been a basic change in how Pakistan looks at Afghanistan over the last 10 years? Are they more willing to accept and treat Afghanistan as a sovereign country which has the right to develop and grow the way it wants and have relations with countries that it wants?
Afghanistan would never be a strategic depth to any country, for any country. Afghanistan, likewise, will not be a strategic depth for Pakistan. But Afghanistan will be a friend, a great neighbor, through a civilized relationship. A neighbor that will make sure that Pakistan as a neighbor is doing well and is stable and is prospering. So through friendship and a civilized relationship, we will be all that Pakistan seeks from us. Through force and the use of extremism, we will not at all be what Pakistan seeks from us.
Right. Mr. President, when Prime Minister Modi was in Kabul in December, he surprised everybody by making the stopover in Lahore. This is perhaps the second or third time that his government has tried to move the relationship forward with Pakistan. How do you assess the prospect for India-Pakistan relations? Because we seem to be not going very far, because whenever there's a forward movement, a terrorist attack happens. In a way, we remain a prisoner to the same terrorist groups that are causing a problem with Afghan-Pakistan relations as well.
Well, before I go to India-Pakistan relations and Prime Minister Modi's visit to Lahore, let me speak about Prime Minister Modi's visit to Kabul, a tremendously good one. The inauguration of the parliament built by India was, a great symbolism of friendship between Afghanistan and India. And Prime Minister Modi's remarks inaugurating the new parliament for Afghanistan were deep in recognizing the friendship and the civilizational ties between Afghanistan and India. That is the essence of India-Afghanistan relationship that nobody can change. So it brings us back to Pakistan and its efforts to sever Afghan-India links. That will not happen. These ties are civilizational, deep, they are people to people, they are in our blood. In the same manner, relations between the people of India and the people of Pakistan are the same as they are with Afghanistan. So common sense would ask us to do what the Afghan people and the Pakistani people are doing, do what the Indian people and the Pakistani people are doing. Therefore, the invitation by Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to Prime Minister Modi to stop by on his way back to Delhi in Lahore was a very good thing. I know Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has that intends well to improve relations, especially with India. And Prime Minister Modi's prompt response to accept it and stop in Lahore showed the great desire in India's leader to improve relations and to make it as good as anyone can imagine. So we support it. We hope it will succeed. In spite of all the odds, in spite of Pathankot and all of that, we hope it will succeed, and that effort must go on.
We had hoped when Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif came for the swearing-in ceremony of Prime Minister Modi, that the emphasis that New Delhi was placing on SAARC, South Asian region connectivity, would produce dividends of some kind. It's clear that India and Afghanistan will always be limited in terms of what they can do as long as Pakistan refuses to grant transit rights.
Yes.
Chabahar has been a dream for
Yes.
many years.
Yes.
What, in your view, are the prospects for Pakistan adopting a rational approach? Because after all, they would stand to benefit if India and Afghanistan were allowed to use Pakistani territory for trade.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Pakistan and the people of Pakistan will be the first beneficiaries of India's connection to Afghanistan and Central Asia, because India's free movement to Central Asia and Afghanistan will bring in tremendous flow of goods and resources and all that comes with it. So it will generate employment, it will generate income for the people of Pakistan and for Afghanistan. This is the need of our region, the need of the time. We very much hope that our brothers in Pakistan will recognize this for their own sake, for their own benefit, and allow it.
Right. In your remarks at the Raisina dialogue, you spoke about the importance of China also in terms of wider connectivity.
Very much.
China has been somewhat of a reluctant player in the, at least in the security and
Yes.
in that environment, even though
Yes.
they have obviously been involved economically. Is it your hope that some of the Chinese initiatives for connectivity could actually become a positive factor for stabilizing Afghanistan?
We hope so. We hope that the One Belt, One Road project will succeed. It will succeed only when India's Connect Central Asia project succeeds. That's why I spoke of the positive symmetry yesterday between India and China, because only through a positive symmetry can both countries reach the objectives that they have. And for Afghanistan, and for a country like Afghanistan, it is the cooperation between India and China that is our greatest hope of prosperity.
In your interaction with the Chinese leaders over the years, did you get a sense that they were as concerned about the growth of extremism emanating from Pakistan as you are or as we are in India?
They are very much concerned about the growth of extremism. They have the ETIM issue there, which is troubling, which is causing extremism there. So China is very much concerned, and China and Afghanistan engaged very positively in making sure that Afghanistan is not used by the ETIM transporting goods or personnel there.
Now, Mr. President, India has been a close partner of Afghanistan since the transition period began. There's been very close political cooperation, economic cooperation. Under your leadership, India and Afghanistan also worked out the beginnings of security cooperation in terms of training of police personnel. There was even discussion of supplying certain kinds of equipment, some of which has now happened via Russia. What more can India do? Do you think India should play a bigger role in the security sphere, or should India be confined to the economic and political spheres?
No. India has been a tremendous friend of Afghanistan. India has treated us Afghans as one of its own. And we have treated India not as a foreign country. That is how we feel about it. We have always come to India as a brother and one of our own, and that's why we have been very frank and open and demanding of India. Do this for us, do that for us. India's engagement with Afghanistan is of paramount importance. India's connectivity to Afghanistan and Central Asia is of paramount importance. India's concerns and security issues are the same as that in Afghanistan. So there is immense, great confluence of interest between India and Afghanistan on all issues, be it economic engagement, political engagement, the issue of connectivity, and more importantly, in this case, the issue of extremism and terrorism affecting both countries. So certainly India's engagement with Afghanistan in security issues is important. I was the one to initiate this. I was the one to sign the strategic partnership with India, which I'm very happy about. And I was the one to seek weapons from India. Those weapons could not be provided during my presidency. They are provided now, which is welcome. So yes, by all means.
And despite the criticism or hesitation or resistance from the US and the UK, which see a closer security cooperation relationship, including the supply of weapons, as a red rag to Pakistan, you're saying that we should ignore, we should forget about Pakistan reacting negatively because Pakistan's reactions anyway have not been helpful.
Of course. And we should ignore any other power that tries to object to this.
But when you were president, did you have these kinds of arguments with the Americans and the British? Why are you going to the Indians for weapons?
I had it with the Americans and with the Indians as well.
Okay, well, right. But in terms of the wider geopolitical scenario, one of the big changes over the last 6-7 months has been the US-Iran rapprochement.
Good one.
How do you feel this will impact the political and security climate in Afghanistan? Do you feel that this will create a more positive push?
Yes.
And tell us your reasons for that.
It's good for all of us. It removes a great part of the tension in our region. It facilitates engagement. It allows Iran to engage more freely and without restrictions on all sides, economically and politically as well. So that improvement in relations, I hope it's furthered between Iran and the US, will help us all very, very well, especially India and Afghanistan, because if Pakistan does not allow connectivity between the two of us and to Central Asia and vice versa to India, then Iran is the best option, Chabahar is the best option, Chabahar-Zaranj is the best option. India has already built a road there from Zaranj to Dilaram, which has facilitated trade and transit for Afghanistan immensely. It's a great project and we must implement it by all means.
In many ways, the tension between Washington and Tehran slowed down what India was trying to do with the Iranian side. And
Yes.
now that that pressure is off, the ability to bypass Pakistan, which doesn't want connectivity, is there for us to
I
take.
hope it will want that connectivity to Pakistan sooner rather than later. But if Pakistan does not allow that connectivity, we cannot sit idle and be simply onlookers to the region connecting and improving. So India and Afghanistan will have to find alternatives, and by all means.
One change that has happened in the security environment, as it were, is the emergence of ISIS in the wider region, and also within Afghanistan we read reports of groups claiming allegiance to ISIS or being part of ISIS. How seriously do you view the emergence of ISIS as a force in Afghanistan? Some people say that this is actually good because it will weaken the Taliban, but clearly there would be all kinds of unhealthy consequences for this.
We should never be happy about the rise of any extremist group in our region, in whatever form, in whatever name. ISIL is definitely foreign-backed, foreign-trained, foreign, exported thing to Afghanistan. Just last week, there were 10 ISIL or Daesh people who surrendered to the Afghan forces, who said on television in Afghanistan that they were trained in Pakistan by Pakistani forces and personnel. So that is worrying. That's something that we are very much concerned about. And I'm sure India has the same concern. I'm sure China and other countries, Iran for that matter, and Russia have the same concern. So it's a regional threat, one that we should take very, very seriously.
But from what you say, the evidence is piling of people within the Pakistani establishment not having learnt any of the lessons of the last decade?
Well, that news I saw myself on Afghan television, and it was also on the Voice of America. Actually, the interview was conducted by, I believe, by the Voice of America, so it's something that we are concerned and something that we have learned through the media, yes.
Right. Turning to domestic politics within Afghanistan, will there be a future role for Hamid Karzai in the politics of Afghanistan? And how do you envisage the kind of...
I as a citizen of Afghanistan, as someone with 14 years of experience in Afghan affairs, I'm engaged fairly in bringing the good that I can bring to Afghanistan and to our relations in this region. I guess that's enough for me.
And the power sharing that we see with the President and CEO, I believe, Dr. Abdullah, is that going as smoothly as all friends of Afghanistan wish?
We wish for them that the partnership that they have will go well and smoothly and in the interest of Afghanistan.
Right. Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us on Indian Statesman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good to talk to you.
Well, that wraps up this episode of IST. Do join us again next week with another guest. Thank you for watching.